Just a reminder, I'll let you know when it's
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor, Mayor Eisenberger, who stepped out, and members of Council. We desperately need to act strategically instead of just reacting to the latest crisis. Through this year's budget crunch, we are at the point now of cutting into municipal services in desperation to hold the line on tax increases, even though the cuts will only make our finances even worse. The growth model that Hamilton has been following for decades is structurally unsustainable. We are building, servicing, and maintaining roads, water, sewer, waste collection, police, EMS, and so on, that costs more over its life cycle than it generates in development charges and property tax revenue. Every time we approve a new suburban development, we make the city's long-term infrastructure debt worse. We are digging ourselves deeper and deeper into a hole that's already $3 billion deep. Now, we actually have a strategic plan to reduce our structural deficit by changing the relationship between revenue growth and expenditure growth. I'm referring, of course, to Council's long-term higher density corridors increase the city's tax assessment on infrastructure that is already without having to pay for new infrastructure. Here are just a couple of local examples. The new 3-story commercial building at James and Vine went from paying $9,000 a year as a parking lot to paying $93,000 a year after it was developed. That's only a 3-story commercial building. The Homewood Suites property at 40 Bay Street South, which I can actually see from this room, went from paying $18,000 a year to paying $230,000 a year. Now think of all the vacant and underdeveloped and underutilized land across the lower city that could be providing homes and jobs and generating more tax revenue. This is why our strategic rapid transit plan starts with LRT on the B line, which the province is fully funding and which is scheduled to start construction in 2019. The route already has the highest transit ridership, and the land use around the line has the highest potential for new development. This investment will not solve the city's financial problems by itself, but it is the essential first step in a long process that changes the trajectory of the city's finances and sets us on a path towards sustainable growth. As the city grows transit ridership along the other corridors in the rapid transit plan, like the A line, which is already in the design phase, the long-term plan is to build out the entire citywide rapid transit network. Despite all this, approving the environmental project report amendment that you directed staff to prepare is suddenly in jeopardy because we all seem to have forgotten why Council voted more than 50 consecutive times since 2008 to support this project. Council is even backing away from its commitment to fare increases. Now at the point when Council is supposed to reward those fare increases on the promise of better things to come. It also undermines our own strategic plan to shape future growth in a more financially sustainable way. This reactive short-term thinking is setting the city up for bigger failures in the years to come. We need to act strategically so we can meet the future with confidence. That means moving forward on the already approved LRT plan, voting to approve the EA amendment today, and it means committing to improving our citywide transit system. Plan for another 7. That is an extraordinary long period in which all the major stakeholders are on board for a transformative project. It almost never happens, and if we drop the ball on LRT, or rather if we throw the ball away since the project is already happening, we will be remembered and ridiculed as the city that threw away its own future, again. We don't have a fallback plan. Without a strategy to bring our finances in order, budget time will get worse and worse each year as the city is left to devour itself. Is that really the legacy we want to leave for the next generation? We need to stop living in the past. We need to plan for the future and then actually build the future. This is an exciting time. I ask you, please don't let fear and cynicism rule the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Councillor Aidan Johnson, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Mayor. And just quickly, Mr. McGreal, in your may need some defining and unpacking, just so your point is made maximally clear, which is the term sustainable growth. And you qualified it later in your presentation by saying financially sustainable growth. What is sustainable growth? Does it refer to sustainable development in part?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Deputy Mayor. In this particular context, I was referring strictly to being financially sustainable, but obviously LRT is also environmentally sustainable. It's cleaner, it produces no pollution at the tailpipe, it improves air quality throughout the corridor, and it also allows for people to live in a more compact, more walkable form, which reduces the need for driving and reduces the need for transportation at all. These are all benefits that will actually improve the environment as well, but I didn't touch on that in my talk.
And so, when you say that LRT is a lever towards sustainable growth, what do you mean?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Again, in this particular context, what I meant is that LRT allows the city to shape new development in such a way that we get to increase, every new development, of course, as you all know, increases the amount of tax assessment the city receives. When property values go up and down, the total amount of tax assessment the city receives doesn't change, the distribution just changes. It's only new development that actually increases our assessed base. What LRT does is it allows us to increase our assessed base on infrastructure that we already have. We don't have to build new infrastructure and lay down miles of new roads and water and sewer and provide services in order to get the additional tax base. What that does is it allows infrastructure liability that the city has been struggling with for many years.
Thank you, Mr. McGreal. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you. I put a sheet out, myth and fact. And I'm tired of hearing that we voted for this plan 50 times, and you indicated in your delegation. Eastgate was the material component of the LRT. It is no longer in play. That 50 votes, and I don't even know what the number is, was relative to a McMaster Eastgate component. There was no report that indicated there was a phase 2. This council to the LRT success. And we are now dealing with the Queenston Circle. That plan has not been voted on 50 times. Would you agree with that?
Through you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Thank you very much for the question, Councillor. My understanding from carefully reading the Metrolinx benefits case analysis and from carefully reading the Rapid Ready was a single LRT from McMaster to Eastgate. Other considerations that the city provided as options to the province were to do a phased approach where we would build McMaster to Queenston or McMaster to Ottawa Street. One option was even McMaster to downtown. So my understanding has always been that we went to the province and said, this is what we'd like funding for. These are some options. And the province came back with the option they were willing to fund, and council agreed to that and has made several unambiguous council votes since that funding announcement in support of that.
So the question again is, did this council, I want you to say this publicly, vote for the McMaster to Queenston Circle?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Deputy Mayor. This council has voted over 50 times at the various stages in order to move the LRT project forward. And that's what I've said, and it's what I continue to say.
Well, that's not what's been put out. It said we voted on this 50 times. So you're now providing clarity that in the process we voted for 50 times, but on this particular proposal that is now being implemented, that's not the case.
Councillor, I think you've made your point.
Thank you. The other issue I have is the province of Ontario created places to grow. We had the grids. We set urban boundaries. We have to absorb, I think we have 60% of the growth within the current urban boundary. A lot of the urban boundary, within the urban boundary, has services purport. I do agree with you that this is really about redistribution of where the development is taking place and where you want it. And I agree with you 100% on that. But we are getting a lot of development, infill development, within the urban boundary where services are. Is that an efficient use of our services?
Through you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I'm sorry, I didn't catch the last part of what you said.
Is that an efficient use of our services?
You mean to
the infill?
The more efficient use of...
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Green.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Mayor. And given the vigorous debate that we've had around procedural points of order, I'm to take through you, Madam Deputy Mayor, that your economic impact and analysis has a direct correlation to the Bay Street stop. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Deputy Mayor, I didn't specifically speak to it, but I certainly would agree with the analysis that it is worth. I can't see any downside to Council asking Metrolinx to investigate this and provide an answer on whether it makes sense and whether they see a value for money that we're asking them to look at.
Man, do I appreciate his forthrightness.
Thank you.
As it relates to sustainability, Madam Deputy Mayor, we are here for the environmental assessment. And I know that you have followed this file for quite some time. In your opinion, is there a huge departure from the original environmental assessment?
Through you, Madam Deputy Mayor, I didn't see a project report amendment that would suggest any reason that this should be anything other than a formality in terms of.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that's the last of my speakers list. So thank you, Ryan, for your presentation. I'm sorry, did you have something?